Welcome to this season of waiting. Fall leaves are faded and mostly gone, branches rising to the sky. The quiet beauty of winter is coming, but not quite yet. We are in the season in between. In the season of waiting, may we let ourselves slow down. Our pace ease from speed and bustle and fretful worry. And yet in the season of closing down, closing in, let us remember to keep our hearts open to each other. Words of Kathleen McTighe. And now please join me as I ring the Tibetan bowl as a call to service.
You on? You.
It was here and then it disappeared, so I don't know what happened. But yeah, I assumed that the volume.
As I ring this Tibetan bowl, listen as the sound fills the sanctuary and then recedes back into the silence. This is the time to quiet your mind and heart to receive all that this service can bring to you and all we can bring to each other. And I will ring it. You can hear it in your hearts and minds and rest with that for a moment. Forward. Well, good morning. Good morning and welcome to our members and our friends and visitors to the Unitarian Universalists of the Chester River, a church relevant in our lives, active in the world, and grounded in love and justice. Perhaps you join us this morning seeking community, seeing familiar faces. Perhaps you are seeking comfort, as many of us are, or a deepening spirituality. Wherever you are on your life's path, we welcome you this morning. At UUCR and many of our UU sister churches, we follow a shared monthly theme for Sunday services. And for December, the theme has been Opening to Joy. To begin the service, I read Kathleen McTeague's words on this busy, busy season and the wise invitation to slow down from the speed and the bustle and the worry. May today's service be a respite from that busy world that you have left behind, as each of us creates that needed space for joy to come into our lives. My name is Annie Lavin, and I'm your service leader this morning. With each passing week, it seems more and more like our traditional services as we gather here in the sanctuary. And now with the added bonus of welcoming those at home via our live Zoom feed. So welcome to you all. If you want to wave to each other, I think you have to look back at Jim to wave, and then they'll say yes.
That's better now since you turned it.
We are very pleased to welcome our longtime friend, very good friend, Michael Franch, who drove up from Baltimore to be with us this morning. Michael is an ethical culture leader and affiliate minister at First Unitarian Church at Baltimore. A historian by training, he has spent most of his career working with the Maryland Medicaid program. Now Mike is a retired guy, his words, but active as ever as he gets around Baltimore on his bicycle. He loves dancing and calling English country dance and playing the concertina. He is a board member of the Baltimore City Historical Society and of the newly formed Green Burial Association of Maryland, which he'd be happy to talk to you about if you have any questions after the service. His topic this morning is the Gospel of Unitarian Universalism, two kinds of good news. A warm welcome to you, Mike. And we welcome as well Ford Schumann on guitar. Ford is known in the community and well beyond for his gift of music, and we are grateful that he's here with us this morning to share it. And as always, gratitude to the tech team, Jim Lavin and John Ramsey. For announcements, a reminder that we do have the basket in the foyer for your offering or your holiday sharing money, your check, your donation, and your pledge check as well. And if you're attending by Zoom, please access the donate button on the website. There is still time to participate in the holiday sharing with a contribution or a gift. Gifts and funds, the deadline for that is next Sunday, December the 19th. Any questions? Please see Lynn Dollinger after the service. And lastly, we at UUCR and UUFE together are starting a virtual small group ministry in January. We have 2 slots that are available for UUCR members, so please contact MQ Riding or Marilee Tosick for more information. And now, let us begin. We will begin with the chalice lighting. I will light the chalice and Mike will read the words.
I think this got turned off. No, it's on now. Okay, great. Thank you. Out of the flames of fear, we as Unitarian Universalists rise with courage of our deepest convictions to stand for justice, inclusion, and peace. Out of the flames of scrutiny, we rise to proclaim our faith with hope to heal a fractured and hurting world. Out of the flames of doubt, we rise to embrace the mystery, wonder, and awe that is in all that is and is yet to be. Out of the flames, we rise in memory and gratitude for all who have gone before. May we be worthy of their light. This is the time to invite you to arrive and rest. In the words of Shari Woodbury, out of the din of the city,
Away from the noise of the crowds,
we come to rest in this moment,
in this place,
set apart from the never-ending to-do lists.
embracing the seventh day, a day of rest.
We come to the warmth and stillness.
Of this sacred hour,
Remember, you have chosen to be here. Something in your life led you to arrive here now.
whatever tasks and cares await you now, for this brief time, simply rest.
Allow your soul to be nurtured. Let the waves in your mind and heart gradually subside.
As you come home to yourself,
Annie's.
holy
Annie's is
and
too-
whole.
Too loud.
Come, let us worship together. Reverend Doug Kraft from the UU Society of Sacramento. He writes that he's often asked about Unitarian Universalism, as I'm sure many of us are. And he uses the following metaphor to explain our purpose. Unitarian Universalism is not a rock to hold on to. It is a river to swim in. If you want a set of beliefs to hold on to, if you want rules to guide your life in all situations, if you want a foundation for a spiritual fortress, you'll probably be disappointed with us. However, if you want to dive into the river and explore, if you think that what you experience and what you do is more important than what you believe, if you want to be with people who engage in this world to promote well-being for all, we may have something to offer. Life itself is more like a river than a rock. Life is in flux. It changes, it twists and turns, it ebbs and it flows. When a river encounters a boulder, the boulder may win for a while, but eventually even the most massive stone is worn away by the currents of time. Unitarian Universalism is about learning how to swim the river rather than climbing out of it onto a rock. For acknowledgements of the heart, each week, we invite our congregants, our members and friends to come forward or to let us know the joys and concerns that are in their hearts, and we light a candle. Last week, we were able to start inviting people to come up to the mic with their mask and to share it in that way. So we will begin that. I'll do the first one. I'll read it first and then I'll go over and light the candles because I've been told where I'm supposed to be standing. Okay. The first candle is for all the survivors of COVID, and that would be each one of us who have struggled with this horrible virus that has infected and changed our lives in so many ways. We are all survivors. And for those who have helped us from the very beginning, the first responders, and those that continue to support us on this journey. I will also light a candle. Catherine Brooks has written in a joy. She says, I'm ecstatic to report that my husband, Ted, has had his heart ablation surgery on Monday, and it was very successful. He has more energy than he's had since COVID began. Watch out, Chestertown, here he comes, an artist returning to his home, and we will be welcoming him. So I'll light these candles and then we'll invite you to come up. Does anyone have a joy or concern they would like to share?
some people know and some people don't know that Vita had her hip done this week. So I want encourage everybody to send her a note because Vita cares for all of us every day. And I think we should acknowledge that. I found out that my good friend Vita Morley is at home now after her surgery. So I'm praying that her recovery will be speedy and she'll be back with us soon.
My sister-in-law, Kathy Riding, will be going in for brain surgery on Tuesday. This is her 5th brain surgery. We're hoping that they get the tumor and that she comes out safely.
I think I'm thinking about the tornadoes and all the that swept through a swath from, I think, Illinois to Arkansas, particularly in Kentucky. And the people who lost their lives, the survivors, the communities that were devastated. Let's hold them in our hearts, support them in ways that we can, and wish that they can put together the pieces of their lives. So that's what I'm thinking about this morning.
I apologize for not being as interesting as surgeries or tornadoes, but my name is Alexandra. I'm a dyed-in-the-wool Unitarian Universalist. My dad was actually a minister, James Bank. And I'm pleased to be here.
Just thought I'd take the opportunity to express my gratitude and hopefully yours to the musicians who come and share with us every week. Ford, for most of them are my friends and bandmates from time to time, but they generously give of their time and come, and I just am grateful for them.
I want to tell you about the joy I feel at the sight of the decorations in the church. I don't know who did them. Whoever you are, thank you very much. And thank you, Ford Schumann, for beautiful music. And Phil Dutton, who was just up here. Love his music too, and hope you'll be back often. And you too, Ford. Those are all joys.
Good morning. I just want to say, and forgive me, Diane, if you're on Zoom. She's not here today. She did not sleep well last night. And I'm worried about her, concerned about her. She's struggling very difficult struggle with her daughter, Nina, who's going up and down in various ways, and the 3 children who are affected and all that. So keep Diane in your heart, please. And sorry, Diane, I'm going to get scolded when I get back home, I think. You know.
We are all family, so it's okay. And that last candle that I lit was for those joys and concerns that remain unspoken in our hearts. Let us have a moment to reflect. Thank you, Ford. I don't know if you can see the candles from where you're sitting, and they're kind of behind all of this, but there are so many today, and I'm just looking at them, so many prayers and joys and intentions and gratitude that are being represented with these flaming lights. And I wanted to add one more, and being service leader, I guess I can do that even though I'm a little late. I wanted to add one of gratitude for our friend Lynn Dollinger, who I have had no voice for a week, and yesterday I called her up and I said, Lynn, in a pinch, can you do this for me tomorrow? And she said, sure, and it was that easy. So this morning I'm squeaking a bit, but her willingness to join us, as we all do for each other all the time, is something that I'm also grateful for. Okay, so please now join me in a time of reflection. I invite you to settle into your space. Take a breath and rest your mind from thinking. From Howard Thurman, the 20th century African-American theologian, come these words. How good it is to center down, to sit quietly and see one's self pass by. The streets of our minds seethe with endless traffic, while something deep within hungers and thirsts for a still moment and the resting lull. With full intensity, we seek a fresh sense of order in our living, a direction, a strong, sure purpose that will structure our confusion and bring meaning into the chaos. We look at ourselves at this waiting moment, the kinds of people we are. The questions persist. What are we doing with our lives? What are the motives that order our days? Where are we trying to go? Where do we put the emphasis and where are our values focused? Where is my treasure and what do I love most in life? To what am I true? Floating up through all of the jangled echoes of our turbulence, there is a sound of another kind, a deeper note which only the stillness of the heart makes clear. For a few moments, I invite you to sit with Thurman's questions. Where is your treasure? And what do you love most? What does the stillness of your heart make clear? Blessed be. And now it is with great pleasure that I invite Mike Franch to come up to the podium and speak of the gospel of Unitarian Universalism, two kinds of good news.
Thank you, Annie. I got to be careful here. I'm going to spend all my time talking about how great it is to be here together with a bunch of people. You particularly, but any congregation, it's a rare thing. And it was nice to hear the name of Jim Bank mentioned this morning. I remember when Jim and his young family first came to Baltimore many years ago. And, that was a long time ago. But anyway, here we are together in person. It's a good time to spend a little time thinking about what is really basic to Unitarian Universalism, a denomination whose original names are all but meaningless to us today. The name Unitarian comes because our founders didn't believe in the Trinity. The name Universalist comes from the belief of that part of our name of people who believed in universal salvation. That is, that everyone is going to go to heaven. Some people may have to experience a little period of postmortem detention, but everybody's going to get there. My guess is that none of you have ever heard these doctrines preached from your pulpit, from any Unitarian Universalist pulpit. In fact, these days, I think you could be a Unitarian who believes in the Trinity and a Universalist who believes that when you die, you're dead and that's the end of it. We are largely identified by our social action and our liberal views. These are certainly things that make this a good home for me, but that's not all that we are. Our views and good works flow from and are reinforced by the ideas that underlay how we behave in the world. Indeed, I think we have a message for the world. Let's call that message our gospel. You know, we don't use the word gospel much in our denomination, especially those of us who tend humanist, but it's a good word. The word gospel comes to us by the way of the Greek and Latin and Anglo-Saxon. We get the word evangelism from the Greek and Latin, and those are the words for good news, which in Anglo-Saxon is Godspell, meaning good story. So this morning, I'm going to be Mike the Evangelist, talking about our Unitarian Universalist gospel, our good news. And we've got good news to proclaim. In fact, we have some uppercase good news, capital G, capital N, and we've got some lowercase good news, that is small n, small g. So these are two kinds of good news, and they're both good, but I think it's important to know which is which. Now, of course, I'm using good news somewhat playfully this morning, but also seriously. What is our good news? Our fundamental message? What I'll try to do this morning is make a distinction between our social action and the ideas that underlay it. They are interrelated but distinct. Our social action and the causes that we support are crucial to who we are, but they're not all that we are. And I'm using the idea of good news to try to make that distinction. And I believe that we have significant good news. So let's start by considering our lowercase good news. And I'm defining this kind of good news as really important and fundamental to what we do, but still different from our uppercase good news. And I'm going to give you some examples here, and then I'll explain what I mean here. I'm happy that my home congregation is active in the community. I'm so happy that we do good things. I would not want to belong to a congregation that was not involved in building a better world. Unitarian Universalist congregations all over the country are proclaiming and are engaging in anti-racism work. We're looking at white supremacy in American institutions and history, and we're looking at it in our own churches and denomination, and we're looking at it in our own lives. That's good news. We have worked on, and indeed we're still working on, issues of gender, sexual orientation, and sexual identity. We've developed a welcoming congregations, so congregations can justifiably signal that they are welcoming congregations. That's good news. And while it seems natural today, it was the result of a long process. None of this good news came without effort. These were not easy automatic things. Our attitude toward LGBTQ plus people was not always welcoming. Our congregations debated hanging rainbow flags. Coming out against apartheid was not always a given. At some periods of our history and in some parts of our history, I'm sorry to say again, in some periods of our history and in some parts of our country, our congregations represented the conservative establishment. It took work to become the denomination we are, or more accurately, to become the denomination we are becoming. In that regard, I mean, Mark Morrison Reed's book about Selma and how it affected the UU denomination. We were pretty conservative racially before the civil rights movement. You know, we liked we could get kind of a little bit puffed up about our role in the civil rights movement. We did have a big role. We had ministers involved in the summer march, but it wasn't an automatic, easy thing. If I were talking to somebody who was looking for a new religious fellowship and wanted to know more about us, I would certainly emphasize these good news items that I've been talking about. The good things that we have done and are doing say a lot about the kind of community that we are. They are important to do because they make us who we are and who we want to be. It's good news that we do these good things, but they are not our uppercase, capital G, capital M, good news. We do these things that I've been talking about because our uppercase good news tells us to do them, calls upon us to do them. You might say we do them not because they're all our purpose, but because they're our job. These are things that we're supposed to do. They are the outward signs of our inner belief. Some people might come to us because they like our stance on causes, and I certainly hope they do. But our stance on causes is not the capital letter good news we proclaim. They are behaviors. They are behaviors, these efforts at social justice and racial equality and all the other good works that we do. They come from our underlying and more basic capital G good news that we proclaim. So let's look at this capital G good news, capital G, capital N good news. That is the ideas and practices that underlay our good works. And the best way to do that, I think, and of course, because I'm a historian, I think it's the best way, is to start at the beginning with the first systematic and very popular proclamation of our good news, which happened in Baltimore in 1819, when William Ellery Channing came down from Boston to preach the ordination sermon for Jared Sparks, the Baltimore's congregation's first minister. And this was at a time when biblical criticism and the historical approach to religion were in their infancy. And the Reverend Mr. William Ellery Channing made a number of radical statements, some of which still speak to us today. Now, I could spend 90 minutes analyzing his 90-minute sermon, and I'd love to do that, but not today. But here's just a few points. Preaching from 1 Thessalonians 21, prove all things, hold fast to that which is good. Channing made these points. He urged the congregation to bring their intelligence to the Bible, just as they would to any other documents. In other words, he was saying, think, people, use your minds. And he discarded much of the Bible as time-bound and inapplicable to modern times. When we read the Bible, he said, and here I am quoting, our bounden duty, it is, he said, our bounden duty to exercise our reason upon it perpetually, to compare, to infer, to look beyond the letter to the spirit, to seek in the nature of the subject and the aim of the writer his true meaning, and in general, to make use of what is known for explaining what is difficult and for discovering new truths. Discovering new truths. Close quote. Think about this. We recognize that religious ideas are subject to the same scrutiny as other ideas, and that religion exists in time, that some religious teachings might have been right for one time, but they are not right for our times. And we are to use our reason to discover new truths. Yes, discovering new truth. We believe that humankind is still discovering truth. Humans will develop new insights, new ways of looking both inward and outward, will set new standards and seek to rise to them. New discoveries in science, rather than being enemies of religion, open new vistas of awe, wonder, and mystery. Many of you have seen, the Hubble Space Telescope photos, and are maybe perhaps eagerly awaiting what we're going to see from the James Webb, which is going to be launched soon. And to see, what's out there. I mean, that doesn't weaken my religion, that strengthens it. It's just to see the whole glory and majesty of this universe that we're a small part of. And indeed, which we're made out of. We're made out of the dust of the Big Bang that started it all. Now, implicit in all this is the idea that religion, including our own religion, is not static. We believe, we know, we have experienced that denominations can grow and change, just as people can. We have experienced this in our own denomination. We are not the denomination that Channing helped found. Indeed, it only took a few years after Channing gave this sermon that the denomination somewhat, Channing's brand of Unitarianism became old-fashioned, and new expressions of Unitarianism began to evolve. By the end of the 19th century, a non-Christian humanist Unitarianism evolved that would seem familiar to many of us today. And in the 20th century, we have welcomed neo-pagans and followers of earth-centered religion into our community, which is now a Unitarian Universalist community. And I should acknowledge I'm really slighting Universalist history in this sermon. Now, some people, not everybody was happy with this development. Some wealthy members of First Unitarian Church in Baltimore were so unhappy about this movement away from the traditional Christianity that they donated this Tiffany glass mosaic of the Last Supper, which we now have in our chancel, literally gluing the old faith to our church wall. And it still dominates our chancel, and we have people who walked in their church, seen it, and turned around and walked out. I just really myself personally dislike it. But I know that it's important to some of our other members in our congregation who love it. And so I can't despise it because people in my community find meaning in it. And I think the point here is that, we did evolve. And here's the key point here, I think, is that nobody got forced out. Nobody forced out. These people of all these different views still have a home. And I'll come back to this in a moment. The point I'm making here, though, is that our capital G, good, capital N news, is that religion is an evolving institution, and we are an evolving religion. And that's really good news, is that you and I are part of this evolution. We are making it happen. Channing did his part, but now it's the time for us to do our part. In essence, what I'm saying to you is that, you are now more important than William Elroy Channing, because you are the makers of the Unitarian Universalism of the present and future. Furthermore, here's more Unitarian Universalist gospel. We are honest about what we know and what we don't know. We are open to the truth and insights into how to lead a good life wherever we find it. This leads to the liberating good news, I think, that no religion, including our own, has the whole truth or the final truth. This builds in, or it should build in, a sense of our own limitations and thus humility in our engagement with the world. We have to follow our light, but we're not going to use our light to set fire to somebody else's beliefs. And as a corollary to this, we are comfortable with doubt, comfortable with not having the final answers. And Annie's reading, they're perfectly tied into this, we're like a river here flowing here. We have our truth, our gospel, our good news, But we know that there are other approaches to religion, other approaches to leading a meaningful, ethical, caring life. And that these other approaches also have value. We are open to learning from them. I find this comforting. You know, we're a small denomination and we don't have to save the whole world ourselves. You know, there's other good folks out there. They're motivated by their own good news, but we can all be working together. Okay, you might be thinking, well, good enough with your good news about religion and how denominations work and all that. But what's your good news for me as a person? Wondering? You know, you might be thinking these ideas are good, but religious life is lived in congregations like this one. If I'm a member of a Unitarian Universalist congregation, what does this mean for me? Well, I'm glad you asked. The best statement I've ever read about what a congregation should be doing comes from the Geneva, Illinois Unitarian Society. In 1842, when they organized, they declared their purpose. We can say they declared their good news. This is what they wrote. Being desirous of promoting practical goodness in the world and aiding each other in our moral and religious development, we have associated ourselves together, not as agreeing in opinion, not as having obtained universal truth in belief or perfection in character, but as seekers after truth and goodness. Seekers after truth and goodness. Promoting practical goodness in the world. You know, in modern terms, that's social action. Aiding each other's moral and religious improvement, spiritual development, a statement of community. Not necessarily agreeing with others, not people who have arrived, but people who are arriving, people who are seekers. Note that what is not in the statement that I just read to you, it is not a statement of belief. What it says is that these are our aspirations, and more importantly, and by implication, that we can do this. These are the things we want to try to do, and we believe we can do this. Helping each other, we can achieve these things. We can live our lives this way. So this little congregation in 19th century Illinois, which would have been much less diverse socially and theologically, and in almost every other respect than many of today's Unitarian Universalist congregations, put its finger on what binds our very diverse congregations and denomination. We are here to help each other in a mutually respectful way. Some congregations make it a practice of ending their services by singing. There's a great little thing in the gray hymnal. From you we receive, to you we give, together we share, and by this we live. I said that to you rather than sang that to you. I think you should be grateful for that. From you we receive, to you we give, together we share, and by this we live. These are not just words for show. We welcome you just as you are to join our community. We encourage your growth to where you want to be. I'm emphasizing you as a unique, irreplaceable individual. But we do this in community. We recognize that people come trailing clouds of identities and belong to multiple communities. We try to see these aspects of you, but we also try to see the unique you before us, a person of worth and dignity. We Unitarian Universalists trust you to use your mind and your emotions and your experience to find the path you want to travel. We believe that a religious fellowship does not need to have a doctrine dictated to it, that we can build an intimate, supportive fellowship of people who believe very different things about some ultimates, about whether there is a God or God, or gods, or life after death, or whatever. We believe that it is possible to do this to succeed in creating a pluralistic culture, and we try our best to live that culture. This is good news indeed. Cultivating racial and social diversity in our congregations is a work in progress, but we have certainly succeeded in theological diversity, or philosophic diversity too, if you want to call it that. Indeed, here the goal is not simply diversity, but pluralism, which the Pluralism Project at Harvard University defines this way. It defines pluralism as the energetic engagement with diversity. The energetic engagement with diversity. It's not just getting along. We don't want, in the words of the Pluralism Project, quote, mere diversity without real encounter and relationship, close quote. We want real diversity, we want real encounter and relationship. What that means, for example, is that I, as a humanist who doesn't believe in God, I want to hear from those of you who do. So I might learn from you and better understand you, and also be better able to support you in your beliefs. The point is this: our religious growth comes not just from ideas and practices which we share and are familiar with, but also from ideas and practices which are different from our own. What will make us individually and collectively strong is for each of us to examine our own ideas and lovingly and respectfully articulate them, live them, and from the grounding of our own approach, to listen to those who approach our mutual journey from a different perspective. How do we meet this challenge? Well, when we do this, we do it well. And we do it well, we transcend these labels that we might have for ourselves as humanist, theist, or neo-pagan, or whatever, and all the labels that we use to describe the kind of Unitarian Universalists we are. When we focus on our dreams, on our aspirations, and our community, we do so deeply and well. Indeed, we are at our best when we talk to each other, when we find ways to express our differences along with our community. We have both of these things that bind us together. These attitudes that I've just discussed are very important as rules of the road, or what we might call procedural beliefs. Respect another's beliefs. Feel free to adopt the best and most workable, and so forth. This attitude helps us live peacefully with differences. The good news, capital G, capital N, is that people can find ways to do this. And we have found one of those ways. We have discovered that we don't have to believe exactly the same thing to have a successful, enhancing religious community. The shared spiritual life, however you define spiritual, and I know some people have like that word, and some people have trouble with it. However you define it, doesn't depend on uniformity of belief, other than the belief that we can travel the path together, abiding by some simple rules of the road. I think our congregations model for the larger community that communities can exist and flourish without being uniform in belief if they are united and unified by mutual respect. Finally, the good news that makes all this work is our concern for the conduct of life trumps belief questions. We often express this as deed before creed. What do you believe is an important question. But what we're really interested in is how your belief influences your behavior toward your fellow human beings and toward this world around us. Do your beliefs affect how you walk in the world? We believe that working together, we can be better people, creating a better world. Good news indeed. And that is where our lowercase good news and our uppercase good news meet. All these good news things we do, our social actions, our being open and welcoming, our respect for the individual before us, flow from and support and enhance our good news, the uppercase good news. The lowercase good news gives action and life to our uppercase good news. Our gospel only lives as we make it live. In fact, let's be specific about that word, we. Our gospel only lives as you and I make it live. So this then is our gospel, our two kinds of good news. I urge you to spread both of these kinds of good news by your words and by your actions. Proclaim it to the world. Proclaim to the world that we believe that human beings acting together become better people and can make a better world, and that we can be better people in that better world. To borrow the great Rosie the Riveter slogan from the World War II, our good news is that we can do it. We can do it. We can be better people in a better world. And let us all say, we shall do it. We shall do it. We shall do it together.
Thank you, Mike. That really resonates with me, and I'm sure it does with each of you as well. For our closing words this morning, Irish playwright George Bernard Shaw, who wrote Pygmalion and Cleopatra and so much more, had the interesting suggestion that every citizen in a civilized society ought to be brought before the bar of justice periodically to justify his existence. Interesting. Years later, and much closer to home, UU Reverend Henry Meserve asked the provocative question: if you were arrested for being a Unitarian Universalist, would there be enough evidence to convict you? Think about it. Would there be? We know the stories of Channing and Parker and Hosea Below and Susan B. Anthony and Dorothy Dix and Clara Barton and so many other giants in social outreach who are easily identified as UUs by their actions. And we honor and praise them. But let's take a moment as our service comes to a close to hold up with gratitude the litany of others throughout the years whose names are unknown to us today. Some long forgotten, others more recent whose names will also be forgotten, and yet whose shoulders we stand on as we share their passion for social outreach. Their passion fired UU with justice as we know it today, unfreezing that earlier identity of Unitarians as simply being a rational religion, when today we can be that and so much more. And underlying it all is the spiritual discernment and the integrity that we bring to our actions. We stand together in living out the gospel of our times. I do believe we, all of us, could justly be rounded up and rightfully accused of being UUs, and that would be a very good thing. May this hour that we have spent together have been a respite from the busy world that you left behind. And may you have found meaning that resonates with your deepest beliefs and your faith values. Please join me as I virtually extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth. Our community. Peace we carry in our hearts until we meet again.
Right.
I do.
Do it on the image.
No. Moving the whole thing, whole page.
No, this is where I am. I don't know why it doesn't.
And this- Keep it right to left, going the other. Is it more?
I don't know.
Thank you, Ford. And so, for those of you who know God, may God go with you. For those of you who love life, may life return the affection. And for those of us who are seeking the path of truth, may the path be found and the grace to walk it proudly. Have a wonderful week. Blessings to you all. Amen.